Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The program is about to begin. Welcome to HODINKEE Radio Live.
All right. Hello. Here we go.
Here we go. Live, so don't mess this up.
Yeah, please.
Don't be nervous, don't
Looking
say
at
it.
you.
Come on, be natural.
I'll be good.
Try to be natural. Look at all the phones.
Yeah, wow. You guys want
Hi,
some
everybody.
pictures?
Should turn mine off.
First off, I just want to thank everybody for coming out. I have to say, I've been involved with HODINKEE for, I guess, about 6.5 years now, and to see everybody out here showing their support, we've got people I've known the entire 6.5 years I've been involved, and some people I just met last night, some people I met earlier today. It's really incredible, and I can tell you really from the bottom of all of our hearts at HODINKEE, this is incredible. This is amazing. There are no other words for it.
I think Stephen nailed it. Yeah, this is fantastic. So happy to be here.
So I think we've got a pretty good show for you today. We've got HODINKEE senior editor John Buse.
Very happy to be here.
We've got I guess international man of mystery, Alton Brown.
Yes.
For
I
you.
like that. International man.
Yeah.
I'm going to put that on my business card.
And Talking Watches alum.
I am a Talking Watches alum.
Yeah.
Had a great time that day.
And I'm your host, Stephen Pulvirent, and this is HODINKEE Radio Live. Let's do it. So,
It's like a really bad, bars where, like in the 70s, you go in a bar and all the guys look at all the girls' butts. But now
Yeah.
we're just guys that are looking at each other's wrists. Which is much safer in the Me Too
yeah.
generation.
And
This
still,
is safe. This
and
is
all the
okay.
stuff we're looking at is from the 70s. So
Most of it.
Yeah.
A lot of it.
Except some of us kind of prefer the stuff from the 50s, which isn't creepy. It sounds creepy, but it's
okay.
not. So, yeah. I
Well-
should go, shouldn't I?
So people here might know you from your episode of Talking Watches, but you've actually been a member of the extended HODINKEE family for a lot longer than that.
Yeah. I became a fan when you guys first started selling really awesome suede distressed watch bands.
Which is how I knew that you were a part of the family. So in the old days, if you bought a HODINKEE strap or one of our Drake's neckties or anything like that in the early days, Ben or myself put it in a USPS envelope and printed out a PayPal label on the WeWork printer and prayed that we had enough packing tape and packed it up and sent it your way. And one day I had a stack of labels and I saw one that said Alton Brown.
Do you remember what year it was?
It
Because I was
must have
talking to my
been-
wife and I was trying to remember when that was.
2012, late 2012.
That
I
long?
guess.
I thought it was
Maybe
even longer.
2013.
But I remember the watch that I was buying for was
Yeah.
a Tudor Snowflake.
Okay, cool.
And I bought a brown distressed suede band, and it was so boss. It was like, yes.
Glad to hear that.
You guys really kind of started that revolution of saying, look, we're going to buy vintage watches. We need awesome straps to put on them.
Yeah.
And we need to change those straps out on a regular basis.
Yeah.
We need 12 NATO straps and 15 suede straps. And you guys started that, and the quality was fantastic.
I mean, it really started organically. It was like, Ben wanted straps, and it turned out other people wanted straps too, and Now we've got a whole amazing team over there in the HODINKEE shop with more options than you could possibly know what to do with.
I know, I'm going to shoplift 3 before I leave today.
I love to hear that. For you, you're allowed. Don't tell them.
I'm not.
Make sure they don't know. But I remember that maybe 6 months later, sitting on my couch, I was living in Brooklyn at the time, and seeing on an episode of Iron Chef America, you stepped out at the beginning and you were wearing our Drake's tie. And I remember completely losing my mind. I mean, to fanboy out for a second, I learned to cook from watching Good Eats. Huge Iron Chef fan, really like genuinely just a big super fan. And I remember seeing it and immediately like pausing the DVR.
So you recognized it right away?
Yeah, immediately. And I think I probably called my mom first. It's a little embarrassing, but I probably...
She's like, Alton who?
Yeah. Definitely no. She's also watching today. My family is more excited to be watching you than to be watching me on the live stream, but that's okay. But yeah, so you've been a member of the family.
I've been a fan for a long time.
For quite a while.
You know, I think that's because watch collecting used to be this really lonely thing, and there wasn't really. There hasn't been that much community around it. And I think that what you guys did, on top of making great products, is you also started to kind of create that community that we needed, because we're geeks and nerds and nobody likes us by and large. So it really, we needed that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And you've been a very busy man since Talking Watches in, I guess, what, summer 2017?
No, gosh, it was 16.
16, okay. So since then, what's been going on in the life of Alton Brown?
Trying to make TV shows. We're actually relaunching the show Good Eats. Is going to start all over again next year with a show called...
Worthy of a round of applause, yeah.
That's going to be called Return of the Eats.
Okay.
We were going to call it Son of the Eats, and I wanted Revenge of the Eats, but then we argued about, well, should be Revenge or Return of the Eats, and so we just decided...
The problem is Eats is already plural, so you can't just make it Eats.
Yeah, but no, you can't. We could, but it's too minimal.
It's a lot,
it doesn't really work. Just Eats could be a lot of things. And then this year we also relaunched a series called Good Eats Reloaded, where I went back and it's like some of the really... That show was on I ran it for 14 solid years without stopping. So I look back at some of the original shows and I'm like, oh, crap.
The haircuts alone.
Yeah, the haircuts, the clothes, but also just a lot has changed in the world of food, and so I had to go back and fix them. It was like, Food Network was like, we want you to make them again. I'm like, I got to go make some repairs first. So that has been really successful. We're doing a second season of Reloads next year as well, and I'm doing another live tour show, although this one will be for the holidays.
You also just released an album of music, didn't you?
We released a CD last year.
Yeah.
We did, which made the Billboard comedy charts a couple of times, which is no big deal because there's only like 3 comedy records made last year, so it wasn't a big deal. But yeah, and then it was a lot of fun.
So what's it like to go back to your work that a lot of people consider seminal,
Painful.
really important work?
Painful.
Yeah?
Yeah. It's like, who's the chubby kid with all the hair? Oh, that's me. No, it's difficult because I'm about process, so I don't sit around and fawn over the product when it's done. When I'm done making it, once it leaves the edit room, a lot of it doesn't again. So now to go back, I'm like, oh, crap. So awkward and kind of painful. And so you've got to learn how to actually walk onto a screen with a version of yourself that's 19 or in some cases 20 years younger and make total fun of that asshat because, oh, shit, I'm sorry.
You're allowed to.
You're allowed. It's all adults here.
You know, I was a complete dork, you know, but with a fabulous set of hair at the time.
Yeah.
But painful and strange, but also exhilarating. And, you know, coming full circle on anything when you realize, God, I've been around long enough now for work to be 20 years old. You know, because the first episodes of Good Eats premiered in July of 1999, but we actually shot the pilot episodes. And the only reason I'm not talking to you is my microphone works better on him.
All right. Sorry, John.
We actually shot those shows in the fall of 1997. And just to show how old we were, we shot the original pilots on film.
Oh, wow.
In movies and music videos. We didn't know anything. So they were really old. Yeah. So kind of facing that was painful, but now I'm kind of like glad I got it over with. Because not many artists get a chance to go back. It's like remastering an album that was okay, but could have been a lot better.
Yeah.
So.
And you said the world of food's changed. How would you describe what's changed kind of on a large scale in the world of food?
You know, I think there are 2 things that changed the world of food. Three things changed food immeasurably just in the time that I've been making food shows, which is, okay, 1, the internet.
It's kind of a big
Which was
thing.
a baby when we started in '97, it was, dial up, It was like, okay, I'm on to Amazon. It's this new bookstore. Anybody remember when?
Totally, I remember those days.
Amazon was just a bookstore. And so that, certainly Food Network changed kind of a lot. And then Instagram changed a lot, because now we don't care how food tastes, we just care how it looks.
Right.
And people will Instagram food without tasting it, which I don't understand. It's like, it's beautiful, but it tastes like crap. So we've got to work that out. But because of those things, because of media, in other words, everything in food has changed radically. And our relationships with food, what we expect from food. I know folks that live here in New York who are like, well, I don't like this risotto because that's clearly Iranian saffron and the crop this year sucked.
Oh, wow.
But they go home and it's like, I gotta boil an egg? How do I do that? So we have this whole generation of people that are very, very educated about food and have great experience with food but can't cook. And I think that a lot of that is media.
Interesting. Do you think the sort of most people's relationship to food and kind of experience of food is better today than it was 20, 25 years ago, or do you think it's worse or just different?
It's both. And it's both for a few reasons. Our exposure is clearly so much more than it used to be. Things like Amazon have made it possible for us to get great spices very quick. We can get any ingredient. 20 years ago, we couldn't make shows that had fish sauce in them because nobody could get fish sauce. Now people are like, fish sauce? I get that at Duane Reade, So in a lot of ways, it's so much better. We have more exposure to cuisines. We have more exposure to ingredients. The problem, I think, is that our relationship is not so good as far as sitting down at the table and experiencing hospitality with other people. We're a little shaky on those grounds, I think. And I think some of that comes from media. The fact that, the real miracle of food is being able to sit down at a table with people and have an experience with those people. And we don't pay that much attention to the people at the table anymore because we're too busy Instagramming, oh my God, look at the Parmesan curls. Okay. I trained under a French chef who was Parisian, and you wouldn't have heard of him, and it doesn't matter, but one night when I was training under him, when I was just out of culinary school, and I'm working the grill station, and I'm like freaking out. It's like between Christmas and New Year's, and it was a restaurant near a ski resort, and so we're being slammed, and he stopped the entire line. Everything stopped. Stop everything. Everybody put everything down. And he comes up to me and he says, Alton, there's only two kinds of food. There's good food and the bad food. And in 12 hours, they're all shit. And then he started the lineup again, and I'm like, what just happened? But I knew that it was somehow important. In the end, the food is all shit in 12 hours. But our experiences with each other as we eat are priceless and memories last forever. So hospitality in this country right now, being civil to each other and showing each other real hospitality, and also being able to accept hospitality. You give me a piece of food, I need to be able to graciously take that food and consume it and be grateful from where it came from, instead of just plopping my Amex down and expecting you to go on your way. So I think we've come a long way, but we've also regressed in a way, and we've got to work that out.
Interesting. I think one of the, to kind of pivot toward watches a little bit, one of the bits of Good Eats lore is that on each season of the show, you wore a different watch for the whole season. True. Including, on one season, you wore a watch for about half a season that was broken, right?
Yes. And the reason that I did that, one, being a watch fanatic, but also so that at any moment, if I saw a show I would be able to figure out what season it was.
Okay.
So I used it as a visual marker.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so for Reloaded, I've watched a few episodes, and it seems like you're wearing a 5508? Is that?
I'm so bad with reference numbers. I write everything down. Hold on. I've got this. I have this. I have all my reference numbers.
Alton Brown carries reference numbers in his pocket.
I do. Hold on. Okay. So, it's like, if you're going to be a
write
watch
these
collector,
upstairs.
you have to be able to do reference numbers, and I suck at it. That is a 1953 6205 gilt.
Okay.
Gilt dial. It's my most expensive watch, and I only wear it when I'm making shows because I'm scared to wear it outside. I mean, it's insured, but I'm still terrified.
So if there's an episode where you're grilling something outside, you'll take it off or something?
No, I won't take it off during a show. I won't. Yep. But I'm really careful, like the watch. Yeah, that was because it's from the first reference that actually said Submariner on the dial, so it's special. And it's gorgeous. And so, yeah, that's the first time that I've worn a watch straight through one whole pass like that.
Okay, and then for next season of Reload, what are you going to be wearing? Have you decided yet?
Because I'm going to roll this guy outside later on after today. I'm going to have his Journe Chronomètre Bleu, which is what I'll wear next season.
Great.
So just wanted to go ahead and tell you.
Sorry, Paul.
In Georgia, where I live, they sell tasers like on the street. So.
I asked him if he needed a guest assistant. He said no, not.
No, what you did is you said I could wear your 1655 up here, and I was like, dude, I've got one. I left it and brought the Timex instead. So.
Yeah. So can you tell us why? You know, a lot of people I know, it's a HODINKEE gathering. Everybody wants to kind of flex and show. They have a watch they want everybody to see them wearing.
Sure.
And I asked you upstairs in the green room what watch you were wearing, and you're wearing a Timex.
I'm wearing a
for
Timex.
a very good reason.
I am. I'm wearing a Timex Marlin in the burgundy face. My wife, Elizabeth, who's back there, hi, sweetheart, knows that I was like looking at the safe, and I was telling you guys, trying to decide, what do I wear? You know, this Patek or this. And I was like, heck no, I'm going to HODINKEE, I'm going to rock a Timex. And the reason is that ultimately why I'm in a gathering like this and why I like hanging with you guys is all emotional. To me, watches are incredibly emotional things, and I remember learning how to tell time. I wanted a watch so badly. I've been in love with watches ever since I was really young, and my dad promised me that he would buy me a watch if I would learn how to tell time, but I had to pass a test. You know, he had to time test me. And I remember, I mean, I was 4 probably.
Okay.
And it's like one of my first memories is taking this test. You know, as he was like, okay, say this 2 different ways, you know, is it 9:45 or 15 to 10, you know? And I remember taking the test, and I passed the test, and he gave me like an early 60s Timex Marlin. And it was like I was being knighted. You know, this device was one step towards, I don't know, immortality. I mean, what is it? You know, for me, for he and I, it was very much a bond of father and son, which I know a lot of guys have with the watches of their fathers, or the grandfathers, grandfathers. You know, need I say Christopher Walken Rolex? We all know what I'm talking about. Or perhaps not. But to me, it's very emotional. So I wanted to wear a watch that had an emotional backstory. So, you know, you can chase references, and you can chase calibers, and you can chase all these things. But in the end, why are you really doing it? And I think it's really great to have a touchstone of why. Why am I doing this? Why am I so obsessed with this little bunch of whirling gears and springs and balances and tourbillons if you've got a lot of money? Why are we so fascinated by that? And I think that it's just, one, we're obsessed with the passage of time, as we should be, but then I think the other is strictly emotional, strictly limbic system stuff.
Nice. And
Good night,
sorry,
everyone.
John.
No, I was going to say, I think it's a good choice. I think it's a good-looking watch, too.
But you guys did a fabulous write-up on these.
Yes, I
HODINKEE did a wonderful story on this.
Cara wrote that
And
one.
one of the things I love about that is you guys are not snooty about this stuff, because you understand that watch collecting, it covers an entire wild range of things, you know? And how many of us actually had the Casio calculator watch? Who still wears it? You know, so I think that that's one of the things that's so great about you guys is you don't turn your nose up at things like that, because you know that there's this massive range of movements and massive range of makers and massive range of buyers. And I talk to new collectors all the time, as I know you guys do, and I'm like, look, you can spend less than $1,000 on a watch that will stay in your collection forever.
For sure you can.
Absolutely you can. And so it makes sense. So thank you for your write-up on the Marlin.
We do what we can.
You do what you can.
You talk about the idea that these things are all about emotion, and I think that that's something we see in your work in the food world as well. Is this combination of real deep human emotion on one hand, and then just total geekery on the other, right? You're somebody who loves little technical things and kind of the science behind things, but also it has to kind of matter on a human level. And how do you think about balancing those two things out? Because they can sometimes feel a little bit kind of at odds.
It's really funny that you mention that. I tend to shy away. I'm emotionally shy. I'm not a sentimental person, and so I think that I flirt right up against the edge of emotional, the stuff that connects us, or the stuff that connects us to family, the stuff, you can't deal with food without dealing with emotion, because everybody has emotionally charged. Everybody in this room, I'm betting, has one childhood memory involving food that is very emotionally important to you. I'm gonna bet. I mean, can I show of hands, how many people can like? So the majority of us, it's emotional stuff. But I think that if you dwell in that, it gets really maudlin, and I think it makes everybody a little bit comfortable. It's kind of like, there's a relative, but I don't want to look directly at that relative. I'm going to have that relative right over here. And so I think that you balance that with, okay, what we're going to focus on are these technical details in science, because that's clean and that's easy, and that doesn't make me cry when I go to bed at night. And so there's always just a balance in that storytelling. But all storytelling is about tensions and the balance of tensions. And as you guys know, as you talk about what you do, storytelling has to play all those different dimensions. So for me, it's just a balance. If you play all emotion, you lose people, because you go emotional. A lot of people have bad emotions. I also have bad emotions about food, and I don't want to go that deep. So it's a little dance of details. It's a dance between humor, science, details, and emotion. Because the funny thing about food is we can't taste it through the television. We still don't have lickable screens, so it is still a secondhand experience. Not yet.
I hope you're working on that.
Smell-o-vision will happen before taste-o-vision. I'll tell you that.
Okay. You heard it here first.
No, it's totally true. It's totally true. It already exists. It's just nobody can figure out how to make money on it, like YouTube. Anyway, so to me, it's balance. And when you get it right and when you don't get it right, it's just all feel. There's no equation, which you guys probably know.
Yeah.
It's like, why does somebody that doesn't have that much money run all over the planet, saving all their pennies to pick up one specific reference of one specific watch, because for some reason they've locked onto it? Is there a reason for that? Because it doesn't actually make sense. We should all just be wearing, Apple Watches here, right? And calling it a day, but we refuse to do it. And there's a reason that we refuse to do it.
And so is your watch collecting also a kind of balancing act for you of this, of the emotional
Sure it
and
is.
technical?
Absolutely. I do not understand myself as a collector at all. I do not get it. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know why I make the decisions that I make. I will up and sell 3 years, well, I got divorced back in 2013, 14, and I sold my entire collection. I don't know why, but I just did. It was kind of like I just dumped everything. And then I slowly started buying the pieces that mattered again. And I think that if you're a collector, the interesting thing is to be introspective enough to try to understand why you're doing what you're doing. What you're wearing, which, as we were talking about, it's kind of perfect watch, the Explorer 1 and 1016.
Yeah.
Why do we chase it? Why do we want it so gosh darn bad? I don't know why I want what I want. It feels good, it's right.
Good. Yeah.
But in the end, don't we men at least, women do have it different because they can wear jewelry, and they're defined by stones, and they're defined by diamonds and things. We don't have that, and so we want to have these things that identify us to ourselves. I'm this guy.
Yep.
I'm a 1016. And we do it with cars too.
For sure.
I'm a 1983 Porsche SC Targa, 911. That's me. Hell yeah. My wife fights me for it I bought her a fabulous race car Mercedes just so she'd stay out of my Porsche. Now you know, sweetheart. But we do them because we want to identify and see, we want our reflection, right? We want to see ourselves.
Absolutely.
This is how I'm going to identify. This is how I identify. Some guys do it with tailoring, some guys do it with watches. I don't know about you guys. What's the first thing you look at when you meet a man?
I guess probably a watch, yeah.
Yeah.
I'd probably be bad at my job if I didn't.
First thing. And how many of you immediately, it's okay to say it, if it's quartz, do you downgrade them?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And
it's
that
not
is
a good answer. You shouldn't applaud that. Don't applaud that.
That is a horrible prejudice.
Yeah.
But the truth is, the first thing I look at is a watch. And if they pass the watch, where do you look next?
Shoes.
Yeah, I guess
Shoes. Yeah. We look at shoes. You know why? Because they speak of caring for things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm wearing a 10-year-old pair of Doc Marten Chelsea boots that have never been polished, so I suck. You guys look awesome.
I mean, the fact that they're 10 years old, I think, is telling. You look at things that are lasting that people tend to hold on to.
You know, it's funny. Well, the thing about watches and shoes And to some degree, clothing, and certainly leather goods, I want to see the wear of time. And I don't know when that became important to me.
Yeah.
I think maybe it always was. I mean, I'm 56 years old, so I certainly have the wear of time on me. But when I look at, one of my fascinations with the 1016 reference is finding tropical dials and finding these faded, Rolex dials fade in a way that cannot be replicated. Nobody's been able to figure out how to do that. Right. And I understand that there's now a company in Japan that's doing nothing but creating patinaed faces for old Seiko dive watches. And I'm like, good for you, but you're never going to pull that off, really. So this question of authenticity arises, because only through time passage and wear does authenticity become an option. Whether it's a great piece of leather, a suit that was made properly 20 years ago, or an automobile that is worn in perfectly right. I'm also a pilot, so I see it in airplanes. People are like, you'll fly an airplane from the 60s? I'm like, hell yes, I'll fly an airplane from the 60s, because they've proven themselves. They have these great airframes. So is a search for authenticity, of representation of ourselves, a reflection of ourselves and the things that are around us.
Yeah. I mean, you talked about this a little bit in your Talking Watches episode, but you're somebody who likes a really well beat up watch.
I beat them up, I wear the crap out of things, and I don't mind scratches. I don't ever buff things out. Every scratch, every piece of wear is either a memory or a little mark in time that I'm going to have.
Yeah, I think the only scratch that bothers me anyway is the first one. And then it's like, okay, now you own it, and after that, let what will happen.
The first scratch is rough.
That is the most rough, the roughest. Yeah.
But the first scratch is the first evidence, physical and visual evidence of it being yours.
Exactly.
We live lives,
Yeah.
And we use things, and things that are well made. It's funny in our culture, quality should be used. I remember having somebody say, "Oh my God, you're wearing a Burberry trench coat to ride a motorcycle." I'm like, it was invented for trench warfare in World War I. I think this will be okay. I have this old Louis Vuitton duffel bag, and I drag it on the ground through the airport. I'm like, why? Because they can take it, and it's not going to fall apart, and it'll look awesome. So I think that fine things should be used, well used.
And so since your episode of Talking Watches, have you found any new watches, and not modern watches, but anything new to your collection that you're just obsessed with?
I don't understand my collection, and I don't understand why I obsess over the things I obsess over. Because I'm a pilot, I've obsessed over GMTs almost to the point of madness. And I suddenly got off on this subset of I'm only going to fixate on GMTs that are Tiffany cosigns. I don't know why. It just happened.
Tiffany signed GMT is a cool thing.
It's
there's
an
no
awesome thing. It's an awesome thing. So I've added GMTs all the way back to 1958. I've become obsessed with the replacement bezels and bakelite and the colors that they take on. My wife is a designer. Hi, Elizabeth. You all right back there? Designs restaurants and furniture, and we talk constantly about patina and how things wear. And so like the bakelite bezels on GMTs, I'm kind of fixated on and judging those finishes. So since I was with you guys, I put on a few more GMTs. I sold a couple of Pateks. I picked up, I was telling you guys, I have to look up the reference again. Was it the 1357? That I've gone crazy for the Patek, sorry, 3579. The Patek 3579. If anybody has one here in the house, it's from the 70s, I'll buy it. I don't care if it's running, I don't care if it's not running. I have the silver face, I need the blue face. It is a very simple watch. It makes the Calatrava look like a Breitling, all right? So it's like nothing at all on the face. It almost doesn't have any hands. So I'm really, really into those watches from the 70s. And Patek, I'm sure, would shrink at having even made it because it looks a little trendy.
It does not look like a Patek.
It doesn't look like a Patek, does it? Well, I don't even know what it looks like. I mean,
it's kind of a tonneau 70s.
Yeah,
I guess anybody.
Almost like a C-shaped case, kind of.
Kind of.
Yeah.
For people listening
Yeah.
after not live here, we'll link it up in the show notes, so we'll have an image of that.
Oh my God, I just drove the price of this watch up. Shit, what did I think?
Yeah, so you should go.
It's crap, I hate that watch.
You should go buy them before this runs. Yeah.
Buy them before this runs.
Everybody make a run.
But for
on
some
these watches.
reason, it's funny. I bought one of these watches. Elizabeth and I got married in September, and it's like I have to wear the perfect watch to get married, and I need another watch to represent this new phase of my life. And I found this Patek from the '70s that was so unique, and I bought it and I wore it to get married, and I found myself, you ever had a watch that you just can't stop looking at it?
Oh my
Where
gosh,
you look
totally.
at it, I had a friend that actually wrecked a car looking at his watch.
We do not endorse that, by the way.
No, we're not.
Yeah.
I suggest that.
Please,
Do
our
not go
lawyers
like that.
will really love it if I
But
say
the
we
more,
do not endorse
the more
that.
I've gazed at this watch, the more I've kind of fixated I've become on it. And I don't know why. I don't need to explain why to myself. It's just that's going to be my reference for a while. That's what I'm going to chase.
And is there another watch that is like further down the line, something that's your grail, the thing that you
Yeah, his Journe Chronometra Blue.
Man,
To me,
I'm really sorry.
So I collected diving watches for a long time because I'm a diver, but I grew up on a steady diet of Jacques Cousteau, and so any watch that I saw anyone wear on the Calypso was game, and I wanted those watches. And as a diver, I wanted those watches, and that turned into a fascination with like 25,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and Journes look like that to me. They're very of that period, very machine age, and I love those designs. I think it's the most beautiful watches being made right now, frankly.
amazing. Yeah. Well, we're going to open it up to questions from the audience in just a minute while we get some mics set up around the room. If you just raise your hand, somebody will come to you with a microphone. But I have a question I want to ask that's sort of a non sequitur at this point, but it's a good eats question.
Ask away.
I'm
familiar.
You are famous as a gear nut for disliking things that only do one job.
Correct.
What do you think are the most useful and the most useless things that somebody can have in their kitchen?
Well, first I want to say unitaskers versus multitaskers. I waged a war on unitaskers, but then I relented a little because I realized that perhaps that was only my lack of imagination with that particular tool.
Okay.
Because other people have come and say, well, I use this for this. And I'm like, oh, all right, I was wrong. I don't like tools that only do one job, but I have found that if people use their imaginations, actually tools do all kinds of jobs. It just depends on the mind. For me, I am constantly surprised by how often I reach for a panini press.
Okay.
Totally.
I have never made a panini in a panini press. I will do that between two hot cast iron pans, but I will do a lot of other things in a panini press. I make the best Cornish hens in the world in a panini press. I cook things in there all the time, but I don't.
What do you spatchcock it and put it in a panini
You
press?
said spatchcock.
I did say spatchcock, yeah. I told you, I watched the show.
Yes, I spatchcock it and throw it in there, and then I put a bunch of weights on it and squeeze the ever-living crap out of it. But I cook all kinds of things in there. So I think that any tool that puts your imagination into play, and you start thinking, I could use this to do this, is a good thing. It could be a steamer basket. It could be any tool that you can buy. So what's a unitasker really? I think a unitasker is defined by the person. If you buy a tool that only does one thing, you better be using it all the frickin' time. It's like, because somebody's like, okay, I bought a robotic, and this actually exists, a robotic donut fryer.
Oh, wow.
Now, that doesn't do a whole lot of things, but it does one thing really well. And I knew a person in Seattle who had bought this old vintage, they used to set them up in storefronts, and it was a thing that would take the dough and it would squirt it, and it was like an assembly line robot for donuts. Yep. He was like, it's a unitasker, so I'm going to have to get rid of it. And I said, let's cook some calamari in that bad boy. And then we made robotic donut line calamari. Then we had to throw out the oil because it tasted kind of greasy. But, but the point is that in the end, the best thing that kitchen tools can do for us is to get us to play. The kitchen's a laboratory and a room at the same time. So the things that are in it are toys, aren't they? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right? So we're making food, but we're also expanding our minds, we're expanding our imagination. So whatever you can pull off, do it.
Great.
Not a great answer to your question.
That's a fantastic answer. Let's see, who would like to start with questions? Maybe over there?
The passing of the microphone.
Hey, so you You mentioned fish sauce as something that was practically unheard of, at least in this part of the world, 20 years ago, and is now everywhere.
And I should say, for white people.
Right, yeah. So unheard of, yeah, exactly.
White people were like,
So-
what's this stuff? This smells like ass.
So what do you think the next ingredient is that maybe billions of people are eating, but we aren't right now, and maybe will be popular in 20 years?
Just the sort of question you expected to get.
You're not talking about like a trend, like what's going to be hot next, like we're all going to be eating.
Something that one culture has been eating for thousands of years, but we don't eat, but maybe we eat.
I would say that it will be in the realm of fermentation, and it will be something like fermented yak butter out of Nepal. Americans, white people, are just really getting our feet wet when it comes to the flavors of fermentation. And the thing about fermentation is that it's so smart because it creates amazing flavors, and it's a great way of making food last. I mean, let's face it, there aren't that many like Midwestern Americans that had kimchi 10 years ago. And that's a shame because the stuff's freaking awesome. So I think it'll definitely be more fermentation. And we're seeing leaps and bounds made in that, certainly in Scandinavia. There's a whole lot going on with fermentation, in Asia certainly. So I think it'll probably be funkier flavors that we're going to accept. And things like fermented butter and butter tea and things like that will be there. You know, we're getting better. We finally accept bitterness, really. You know, we will eat our radicchio. We drink our coffee black and strong. So Americans weren't into bitter even 10 years ago. So I think now that we've gotten ourselves around bitter, we're drinking Amaro. How many people drink Amaro here? How many people are, oh my God, come on guys, Amaro, really? Jägermeister, come on, how many? Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. You know, we're into more complex flavors, and I think that now that we've gotten used to complexity and bitterness, we're gonna get funky.
Great. We have somebody up front right here.
Yes, ma'am.
Does your view of unipurpose and multipurpose things extend to the knife collection?
Knives get a free pass simply because I'm obsessed with them. However, the problem with knives is that folks, at least in the United States, I think, want to have 20 crappy ones instead of 2 good ones. And I think that it's kind of like a watch collection in a way. You have to start identifying what real quality is and understanding its effect on how your cooking is going to go. The truth is, there are very few things more useful in a kitchen than a high quality knife with good steel that has been ground correctly. And it will change your world very much. So that's a case where I think that fewer pieces of high quality greatly exceed a bunch of knives. You don't need 3 boning knives, you know. You need a paring knife, you need a serrated knife, a chef's knife, and a boning knife. You need 4 knives, that's all. And if you really like oysters, get an oyster knife. Or a screwdriver. Because a good craftsman flathead screwdriver is better than an oyster knife. But make them high quality. You know, people will be like, I'm not gonna spend $350 on a knife. I'm like, yeah, if you've got it, you really ought to think about that. And by the way, my favorite knife maker in the world is Cut Brooklyn in Brooklyn, New York. They're making the best knives on the planet here in New York. So
Amazing.
Congratulations.
Cool. We have a question right up here.
Hi.
So you mentioned watches having significant emotional impact with you.
Yes.
Do you remember the watch you picked out to wear the first time you went on a date or met your wife?
What was she wearing? She wasn't, and it distressed me. My wife was not wearing a watch on our first date. She is now, though. She's definitely. I do. I remember what I was wearing and why I picked it. Yeah, and it's the watch she's wearing now. What's that, honey? Well, you're a big Omega fan, but we've got to get that thing fixed, honey. That movement's a little scrappy right now, which might explain why you were 45 minutes late. I don't know. I'm kidding. She wasn't late. She was completely on time. But it's funny. I think guys, we always wonder, is a woman going to notice? Because it shows such a huge part of our personality and things that we don't even know how to talk about. A guy is like, okay, am I going to wear an IWC Portuguese or am I going to wear an Omega 300 Seamaster? What am I going to wear on the first date? What am I saying about myself? And people that can read that, and there's nothing more wonderful than having a woman notice your watch. You're like, yeah. And I don't need a 44 millimeter case, by the way. I'm sorry, but Breitling is compensating for something. Because nobody's used a Navitimer in the last 20 years. It's just, pilots don't do that. But that's a great question. As a member of the lady class, how much attention have you put into the watches that you've worn on dates?
I do. I remember when I met him, he was wearing our first date, he was wearing a two-door with a camouflage strap. And I asked him.
That was a HODINKEE strap. That cami strap, it's awesome.
And
That cami strap is
tongue-in-cheek with him because it was camouflage, and I asked him if he was doing a refined redneck look. And he responded, well, actually, the people who make this are the same ones who make the robes for the Vatican. And I learned so much about him with that result.
Wow, you pulled that out on date one?
This, by the way, is Ryan, one of our engineers, a extremely valuable member of the HODINKEE team who not enough people get to meet. So let's get a round of applause for Ryan.
Met these guys last night. You still should have bought her the Cartier, but we'll talk about this later. Anybody else?
Yeah.
This guy's had his hand up for quite a while.
Hey, I'm a huge fan. I was just wondering, what's one food or beverage or maybe just cooking process where you think of time as being the magic ingredient?
Time is the magic ingredient for barbecue. Southern barbecue is defined not by smoke but by time. And there's no way around it. There's no way to cheat it. There's no way to replace it. There's no way to circumvent it. Time is absolutely true. And in a lot of meat cookery, time, it's funny, and even I have perpetuated this kind of myth that temperature is the most important factor when actually time is more important. And it's the one thing that Americans don't want to give their food. Time.
So no pressure cookers?
No, I love pressure cookers. I love them. They are the TARDIS of the food world. Yeah. Absolutely the TARDIS, except it's not bigger on the inside. If I had a pressure cooker that was bigger on the inside, it'd be awesome. I love pressure cookers and work with them often to fold space and time. Yeah. But that's not something that can be done with barbecue because the other factor within barbecue is evaporation. Mm-hmm. And the loss of moisture during that, which you're not going to get in a pressure cooker. So, but that's the one thing.
Great. Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Hi.
Hey.
So, when I was growing up, we grew up eating a lot of like box cake for birthdays. And then when we started making stuff from scratch, I noticed everyone was much more amazed eating the frosting. It's so much better than the stuff you can buy in a can, but less so on the cake. So let me ask you, what is a food that you think making from scratch is way better than the store-bought version, and what's something you think isn't much better when you make it at home?
This is a fantastic question. Now I'm going to explain why this is the truth. Frosting, okay, did everybody hear what he said? Okay, box cake, nobody can make a scratch cake as good as box cake, but frosting you can. And you know what? You just kind of encapsulated the entire mystery there, which is that frosting is something that has very few ingredients. I mean, it's really the essence of candy making, which is the control of sugar and the crystallization of sugar and the flavoring of that. Cake manufacturers have access to modified starches and industrial products that we can't get off the shelf. And even if we could, we wouldn't really know what to do with them, which is why I cannot make a better chocolate cake than Duncan Hines. I have tried. I can't. I can add cognac. Okay. And you know what? Very often it's like you buy like a Betty Crocker cake and it says to put in 1/3 of a cup of oil. Get the white cake and use olive oil instead. You're a freaking genius. But the truth is when it comes to almost anything that includes starch, the mixes will beat us every time because those starches, those actual products have been manufactured to make that cake successful, and it's incredibly difficult to do from scratch. The things that people don't realize that they can do that are always better, and I back on this, marshmallows. Oh my God, homemade marshmallows are like the best thing ever. And when you make homemade s'mores with your own marshmallows and you put a little bit of blue cheese or gorgonzola in the s'more and then serve it with a cold muscat. But, you know, can I make butter better than Kerrygold or Vermont Cheese and Butter Company, which has a fermented butter? I can't. I can make butter, but it's not going to be better. And I can make cake, but I will never make a devil's food cake as good as Duncan Hines. It's just not possible because I don't have access to the materials. But I can beat their frosting hands down. Good question.
Thank you.
Yeah, very good question.
Well done.
Who else? So we've got one in the back.
Hey, I think a lot of us just in our childhood have a certain dish that we just always retract back to no matter how extensive our palate gets over the years. What's something from your childhood that you will always love that other people might not?
Gainsburger's dog food. How many people were alive in the 60s? Okay, so you and me, camera guy. So in the 60s, there was this dog food company called Gainsburgers, and they made this dog food that looked like a raw hamburger patty. Okay, it was like this shredded meat product, and they wrapped it in cellophane, and you're supposed to like you kind of uncrumble it, you crumble it in your dog's bowl. I became obsessed with this stuff as a child, and would often trade my food to the dog to get the Gainsburgers. And even I remember one night, I announced to my parents that I was going to make dinner. And I'm like, 5. I'm like, 5. I'm like, I'm going to make dinner. And my parents are like, yeah, that's great. Okay, fine, go do that. You know, and I go, fine, I will, God damn it. You know, and I was Stewie Griffin even then, you know, and I was like, I chose, come on, Brian. And we off to the kitchen, and I got out these hamburger buns, and I got out pickles and ketchup and mustard and lettuce, and Gainsburger's dog food in the patty, and I built these hamburgers, right? And I go out and I like serve my mom and my dad, and they're like, our child is Mozart. Oh my God, this is amazing. And we're sitting, and I get them to eat, and we're eating, and my dad's eating, you know, I'm eating, and my mom's not eating, and my dad looks over at mom and says, her name was Phyllis, so he called her Phil. He's like, what's wrong, Phil? And she said, I didn't buy any ground beef. And my dad's chewing, and he looks down, and the dog is sitting right there, looking up at him. And he looks at the dog, and he looks at it, and he looks at me. And in the only testament of love I remember from the man, he went right on chewing, swallowed, excused himself, took his scotch, and went and watched TV. So, Gainsburger's dog food.
We should have time for one or two more. Any more hands? Oh, right there.
Just going back to single task machinery versus multi-purpose machines and how that extends to watches. You know, you mentioned your interest in a very simple time-only watch earlier. How does that extend to your watch collecting, and what, if any, complications do you find most useful, not only in the kitchen, but in your daily life?
Good question. I have always had a propensity, although I talk about simplicity a lot in watches, if you were to look at my collection, you would see a lot of professional tool watches. As a pilot, I used to be obsessed with flying watches, with pilot watches, and only to find that, you know, after a while, you know, E6B calculators like we have on the Navitimer or the Breitling series, we don't use them anymore, but we do use stopwatches. And when you're in a holding pattern, everything is determined by 1-minute legs, and the easiest thing to hit is a stopwatch. So I will very often, when I fly, wear a flyback chrono, because I want it to pop back and reset every minute. So I wear those a great deal. Oddly enough, in a kitchen, and I've talked about this, chefs typically, or very often, are watch fanatics. And they'll wear something that has some form of elapsed time ring, because what we want is something that can get really wet, really beat up, but that we can time with. And using a bezel-based timer, like on a Submariner, whether it's counting down or counting up, as you know some watches do, are very, very useful. Because I have hosted a lot of television shows, competitions with timed rounds, I have always used that as an excuse to write off watch purchases. And I find in that case, watches devised for the racing world are very, very useful. So bring on the Monacos, because the Carreras and the other Heroes, because they are really great for that and very readable for timing 30 to 60-minute increments. And then, of course, there will always be the Speedmaster. We were talking about those earlier, pre-pro moon watches, which are also incredibly readable and easy. As I get older, I've got to be able to read those little bitty click, click, click. Which is why I also still use an IWC Portuguese quite a bit when timing shows, because it's crap for timing long periods, but great for short periods. So,
Great.
excellent question.
Do we have one more here?
Alton, you're a guy with very strong opinions, and I love that. So what is your one favorite thing in the watch industry, or the one least favorite thing in the watch industry you can share?
My most favorite thing in the watch industry and my least favorite. Oh, okay. I didn't understand the trend that we got into in the 2000s towards watches the size of Frisbees. I don't have a wrist that can support that. To this day, I will try on a Panerai and it's like, hey, Sonny, where'd you get your dad's watch? I also like it when watch companies find a way to progress and evolve while maintaining faithfulness to their DNA. When a watch stops looking like a company, I have a problem with it. And I think that in engineering and design, the real great thing about watches is when you look at a line and you see a clear transition and a clear loyalty to their DNA. And I really respect that, because I think that's harder to do than a lot of things. You guys probably have opinions on that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense. I agree. I think there's a tendency to want to push things and always do that next thing, and I think having some restraint there is a valuable thing.
You got to know who you are, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think we mentioned Panerai. In the case of a brand like Panerai, I think having that larger case is who they are.
Yeah. It's always who they are. I mean, you put on one of the original Panerais and it still looks like my dad's watch. Yeah. So they've always stayed true to that. But other companies, I mean, Breitling I think, a really great example of somebody who just went pimp. I can't wear a pimp watch. Guy Fieri can wear pimp watches. Breitling is the official timepiece of Flavortown. I'm going to shut up now. Thanks, guys.
So we're going to close the same way we close every episode of HODINKEE Radio, which is with a cultural recommendation.
Sweet.
So I think, considering who you are and kind of where we are and the fact that we have lots of people here from out of town, let's keep it to restaurants. So what is a New York City restaurant that you think everybody should go try?
Barbuto.
Okay.
I think of Barbuto as the quintessential, right now at least, West Village Italian restaurant, and one that I find myself recommending over and over again.
Is there anything there you think everybody should try?
Chocolate frickin' pudding.
All right.
Yeah.
Never had the chocolate pudding there.
Then you're just wrong.
Yeah, obviously. My wife is also in the audience. We're going to Barbuto.
Chocolate pudding. Yeah.
All right, perfect. John?
If you like Japanese food, I'll recommend it is very reasonably priced. And you probably could get in tonight if you wanted to.
All right.
Yeah. And if you're here tomorrow and you're interested in lunch nearby, just go across the street to Otto. They have very good pizza. You can get pasta, be in and out very quickly.
The pizzas are fantastic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great. I'm going to go a little bit different, and I'm going to say there's a place, Taqueria St. Mark's, over in St. Mark's Place. I grew up in Austin, Texas. I grew up eating Mexican and Tex-Mex food multiple times a week, and when I went to school, to college in the Midwest, and then moved here. And not having good tacos was painful to me emotionally. We talk about, you know, food that carries great emotion. I finally found like a great neighborhood cheap taco place. The bartender's a big HODINKEE fan, which helps. But yeah, it's just a great neighborhood taco spot. So if you want some tacos, it's like a 10, 15-minute walk away.
Everybody.
And they actually have a place up in Gramercy now too that they just opened. I haven't been.
Really?
there,
Nice.
But yeah,
Mine
fantastic. It's LA style, like you know, street cart tacos. It's fantastic.
Sold.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you guys both for being here. Thank you, Alton. It's amazing. Like
Thank you
like
so
I said,
much.
you've been a longtime member of the family, so it's great to have you.
Proud to be here. What a great event.
Awesome. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Sorry I talked so much.
Oh, no, you're the best guest.
Yeah. Can you take a nap?
We would like to thank Audemars Piguet, BMW, Cartier, Grand Seiko, Oris, and Zenith for their support in making this weekend possible.